morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining in. I'm excited to be talking about this topic, which is on how you can choose the most effective data science projects. So I'll get started with a story, a data science story. There was this large financial services organization where the CEO was a big supporter of data science. And he decided to start the organization's analytics journey by which other way than hiring data scientists. And he hired 1,000 of them, each at an average cost of $250,000. And he was pretty proud of this achievement. It's no mean deal to get so many unicorns. But a few months down the line, the organization did not realize the intended benefits from all of these pricey data scientists. And later it was found out that all of these people were not in the strictest sense data scientists. So that's where the disconnect became bigger. Eventually, the initiative was completely shelved, leading to a huge loss of investment and, importantly, time to market. This is not an isolated incident. This happens across many organizations. So much that Gartner says that 80% of analytics projects will fail. That's a pretty staggering number. In this age of AI, where we have so much of interest and investment going into visualization and advanced analytics, this is shocking. In this webinar, you'll learn 4 things. 1, why do so many projects fail? Number 2, you will learn how to choose the right data science initiatives and build a roadmap out of it, the short-term and the long-term ones. And finally, you'll see a lot of examples from various industries covering visualization, storytelling, analytics, and we'll also see one real-world example of how you can go through this entire process of roadmap building. Firstly, we saw that 80% of projects fail. What is the key reason? The biggest challenge is with prioritization. Imagine this scenario. You come across a cool AI algorithm and you have capability data scientists in your organization. So the natural tendency is to pick that algorithm and see where can you apply it within your organization. So you go after the interesting aspect of things as opposed to looking at what is impactful for the business. So when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So that is a challenge, and eventually it can come back in terms of lower business benefits. The second challenge is where people go after what is urgent. Where are the projects, which projects are people screaming for attention, as opposed to looking at what is strategically aligned to the organizational objective. Third category is where you go after what is possible, that you have this data to run a pilot or to do a phase 1, or you have budget for doing, say, for the next 3 months. You go and you launch that. You don't look at the feasibility aspects of productionizing it. Will it really scale? When you don't consider those aspects, the projects get halted midway or they die a slow death. So these 3 are the fundamental challenges why projects get it wrong and where organizations miss the priorities. So I equate the data science journey to a 30-hour marathon hike. So you can optimize all of your gear and choose the best route. But if you pick your target wrong, all of this effort will go in vain. So in summary, insights don't deliver business benefits whenever they solve the wrong problem. So how do you ensure that you identify the right problems and rally support behind that? That's what we will talk about now. So when you have company culture as the biggest roadblock, that can be dangerous. So as Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can have the best of plans, but if you don't have culture by your side, it can be difficult. So that's where you need to bring in the executive firepower. You need to get an executive mandate when you start the data science journey. And you should go to them not just for their budget, but for their time as well. And why do we need that time? Number 1, we have to start the data science initiatives top down. Start by asking the questions, get them into a huddle, identify your core team, the champions, and get all of them into a 2 to 4 hour huddle. But that could be a challenge. That could be your first project in most organizations, getting all of those people into a 4-hour discussion, but that is essential. You need to do that to make sure that this aligns with the strategic priorities, you get the funding, and you are able to hit all the right areas. You will need executive support throughout, but Very specifically, you will need it at a second phase. That's when you are rolling out your initiatives. You need the executive power to navigate change. Data science changes the way people work. So it's a massive change management exercise that is needed to make sure that people actually use your visualization or machine learning dashboards. So that's where change management is needed by planning roadshows. You set up reviews, starting with the executives and cascade it down the organization. And you build an incentives to make sure and motivate people to come up and participate in that. The next step, once you have the team and the discussion in place, is to identify the users. And we'll have to ask the question, who are the audience we need to serve first? You can't build a solution for everyone. If you build it for everyone, no one will use it. So identify your target audience, who are the primary users, and define them. It's useful to come up with the roles, designations, and kind of paint a persona. Look at their priorities. What are the goals? What are the goals that they're trying to hit in the short run, long run? Do interviews, focus group discussions with them, find out and hear from the horse mouth in terms of what they want to achieve. And finally, find out what are their pain areas. What are the challenges that keep them up at night? Try to quantify these and identify the metrics. Come up with a ranking of the challenges. When you ask for the pain areas, you'll come up with a laundry list, but you need to rank them in terms of most important to least important. We'll see what we have to do once we have these areas, because once you come up with the pain areas, you can start looking at the initiatives and data-driven initiatives that will help you address that. So here's a framework to go about all of this. We take a business-driven approach first, start with the stakeholders, identify the users, look at their objectives, and find out what initiatives can be met for these objectives. And then find out what questions have to be answered and what data is needed for that. So far we're going with a business-driven approach without looking at the data. You should do a reverse flow by starting with the data and finding out independently, if you have spreadsheets of data or certain columns of data, what questions can you answer with that? What initiatives does it address? What objectives will that meet? And which users does it serve? So now both of these may not strictly align. You will have a lot of business objectives where you don't have data. Make a note of it. Those are your future data engineering projects. And on the other side, you'll have a lot of interesting stuff coming from the data, but it may not meet the most important objectives, or it will not be relevant for this audience. Either deprioritize or drop that. So once you map both of these and come up with an alignment, you have your list of relevant data science initiatives. So that's what we will use for the next stage, and we'll talk about prioritizing and building a roadmap. So now, having identified this laundry list of initiatives, we have come to the stage of prioritizing them into a roadmap. There are three levers you should use for prioritization. Number one is identify the impact. Is it in terms of revenue? Does it increase or does it add to the top line? Does it reduce or save your cost? Does it save the effort? Identify what is the impact of initiatives. Could be a combination of these or one of these. And it is very important to quantify the impact. Come up with a dollar value. What is the impact? If you're talking about effort, and even if you're saying few hours of effort, come up with the average cost for that skill set and come up with a quantified impact. That's important to prioritize, and you will find out that it is important in the later stages as well. Number two is feasibility. Look at data feasibility, whether you have all of the data now and for productionizing it, whether you have the technology available in terms of connection with other tools, APIs, and distribution and all of that. And make sure you have the budget, not just for this phase, but future as well. Based on all of these feasibility aspects, come up with low, medium, and high. And finally, the third lever is urgency. Look at the time frame available. When you ask how soon you need something, the common answer is I need it as of yesterday. But not every problem can be solved immediately. So you need to ask them to prioritize it. Is it something which has been hurting for a while, which is impacting revenue, cost, or effort? Is it something which is an inconvenience which needs to be looked at next? Or is it a need felt today, in which case it becomes a pain a few months later? So you have to prioritize them. Once you have these three levers, once you understand them, here's how you will pass the list of initiatives into this. So we plot impact on the x-axis, feasibility on the y-axis, and we have the urgency, low, medium, high as a color. We come up with neat quadrants. High on impact, high on feasibility is a quick win. Those are the ones you should start right away. Those on high on impact, moderate on feasibility are strategic ones, where you should look at it, take care of the feasibility and start that next. Those that fall into the evaluate zone use urgency and find out if you can prioritize based on that. High on urgency in the evaluate stage, maybe you should take up. And everything else can be deferred. With this, you come up with your prioritized custom roadmap. You'll be able to identify not just the data science projects, but even the data engineering ones. And for data to become a culture, you need to start early. Come up with some of those future initiatives as well. You build a roadmap spanning all of this. So that's why we call it as a data roadmap. And this neatly feeds into each other. So now it's time to wrap up. We talked about 4 key learnings today. First, we started with the maturity levels in data. We looked at how you can move across the stages. We looked at a lot of examples and we emphasized on insights plus consumption. That's an area of focus that Gramener has. How do you come up with the right insights and make it consumable? We also looked at why projects fail. The 80% failure rate was explained in terms of the priorities. We looked at the way to go ahead and identify the initiatives, starting initiatives top down. We talked about bringing executives in and then understanding the users. And finally, we looked at building the roadmap. How do you use the 3 levers to sequence and come up with a prioritized roadmap? Hope you found this useful. Thanks for all of your participation. Great to know about the challenges you're facing and how you're planning to address that. With that, thank you. I'll close the session and here under gramener.com/solutions, this URL, you'll be able to find a lot of examples. All of those I shared today are public examples you can find here. There are several more examples. And if you have any other questions or follow on, or you would like to discuss more, do hit me up on these on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm fairly active. So with that, I will close the session. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your participation. Thank you.